What annoys me about the Shedeur Sanders situation is that people will say when Shedeur Sanders was a third string quarterback, he can't be complaining because he was a fifth round pick. But when Shedeur Sanders is playing and he's playing pretty damn well, I don't hear anybody saying, wow, this is a fifth round pick that's playing like that. So I want to finish this episode by talking about Shedeur Sanders and some of the inconsistencies that I see with people's arguments about Shedeur Sanders. So this is where I'm going to start. What annoys me about the Shedeur Sanders situation is that people will say when Shedeur Sanders was a third string quarterback, he can't be complaining because he was a fifth round pick. But when Shedeur Sanders is playing and he's playing pretty damn well, I don't hear anybody saying, wow, this is a fifth round pick that's playing like that, because that's the context that I'm using. If this was a fifth round pick that wasn't named Shedeur Sanders, he played the same way Shedeur played, but he was a different name. He was John Smith or somebody like that. Let's just use that name, for example. People would be saying, wow, this team got a steal with the fifth round pick. This guy could potentially be a franchise quarterback. But because people are holding Shedeur Sanders to the expectations that some people had going into the NFL when it comes to, oh, you were supposed to be a first round pick, you should be better than this. Well, that to me, I think is flat out inconsistent. Was Shedeur Sanders perfect? No. He'll tell you that he wasn't perfect. Was he really damn good? Yes, he was really damn good. He was really letting the ball rip down the middle of the field, and some of the throws that he made outside of the numbers was very impressive. He has made a lot of progress as a quarterback. He looks like a guy, I'm not saying he's a franchise quarterback yet, but he's working his way there. He absolutely has made a case that he's becoming a guy that can be a legitimate NFL starting quarterback. And that's what needs to be the conversation here. Wow, look at this fifth round pick that got his opportunity to start and played as well as he did. That's the standard that I'm holding him to, because I was one of those people when he was the third round pick, or when he was the third string quarterback, I said, well, he's a fifth round pick. What do you expect? But I'm also going to keep the same energy when he goes out there and he plays very well. I'm like, wow, he is exceeding all expectations for a fifth round pick rookie, which is what he is. So I think people need to come away from his performance against the Tennessee Titans as, wow, that was a very impressive performance. And this is where I also want to go with it. Kevin Stefanski was not the one that called that last play with the 2-point conversion. If you want to go at Kevin Stefanski, fine, go at Kevin Stefanski for the way he's handled the Shedeur Sanders situation. I personally think it's kind of unfair if you ask me, but put the energy where it needs to go. Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. He was the guy that called the play. This is not an example of Kevin Stefanski not liking Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that there's tension between the two. Do I think that Kevin Stefanski is a big fan of Shedeur Sanders? No. Do I think Kevin Stefanski wanted Dylan Gabriel to be the starter over Shedeur Sanders? Yes, he's proven that. But at the same time, I don't think that there's some awful relationship between the two. I really don't. But what I'm saying is just put the energy where it needs to go. Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator. Blame him for that play call. It was a bad play call. Shedeur Sanders should have been in for that point of the game. And that's where I will 100% agree with people. But I'll go here with this, right? Shedeur Sanders not being in for that 2-point conversion might have actually been the best thing for him. And here's the reason why. Because there are a lot of people who are fans of Shedeur that are saying, hey, Kevin Stefanski doesn't like Shedeur. So now they can push that narrative out there more. And not only that, you cannot blame Shedeur Sanders for this loss. He was outstanding. If you score 29 points with the Cleveland Browns, with that defense that they have, they should win that football game. But also the reason why I say it's actually a good thing for Shedeur is because let's just say the Cleveland Browns, because they lost this game, they put themselves in a position to draft a quarterback. Well, there's a lot of people who are fans of Shedeur Sanders that want him out of Cleveland to begin with. So if that's the case and they draft a quarterback, they're just going to trade Shedeur Sanders to another team. And if they don't draft a quarterback, then Shedeur Sanders is probably going to get Jordan Tyson from Arizona State or one of these really good receivers that are going to be in the draft, and he has another weapon to throw the football to. And so that's where I'm looking at this from, and I'm saying, okay, it's actually not a bad thing because you can't blame the loss on Shedeur. You can actually point the finger at Kevin Stefanski, even though I don't think it's fair because it was Tommy Rees that called the play. And the Cleveland Browns put themselves in a position to actually get a really good draft pick to pair with Shedeur if they want to pair him with Shedeur, or draft a quarterback and trade Shedeur to a situation that is probably more favorable for Shedeur. So I don't think it was the worst thing in the world. And here's where I also want to go with this Cleveland Browns conversation as well. I do think both the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski should mutually part ways. Kevin Stefanski has been through a lot as the Cleveland Browns head coach. And I just personally think for him, it would be better to move on because he's going to get job opportunities. There's no doubt about it. And I also think that if the Cleveland Browns want to move forward with Shedeur Sanders, you should get a coach that fully embraces Shedeur Sanders. Do I think that Kevin Stefanski hates Shedeur Sanders? I don't believe that. I really don't, but I also don't think that he's fully embraced him. And now what that allows you as an organization, as the Cleveland Browns to do, is that you can actually go get a guy that embraces Shedeur Sanders, that wants to coach Shedeur Sanders, because this team, this Browns opening, if that becomes available and they move on from Kevin Stefanski, there's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be people that are interested in this job because they just had a fantastic draft in 2025. They added a lot of good players to that team. They have a quarterback who's showing some promise. They're going to have 2 first-round draft picks this upcoming draft. There's some really positive things going on in Cleveland, but again, I just think it's so important that if they want to move on with Shedeur Sanders, not move on from, move on with, they need to find a coach that fully embraces him, that goes into these interviews and says, I look at this guy as a franchise quarterback. This is my plan for Shedeur Sanders. This is what he does well. This is how we're going to enhance those strengths. And this is what he doesn't do well. And this is what we're going to do to try and work on what he doesn't do well. That's what I think the Cleveland Browns should do. And here's my last take when it comes to this whole situation. The Cleveland Browns 2025 draft was fantastic. It was one of the best drafts that we've seen over the past few years here. Mason Graham looks like he's going to be an outstanding player in this league. Quinshon Judkins, Carson Schwarzenegger, Harold Fannin, Shedeur Sanders looks like he could be a franchise quarterback. Those are 5 players right there that can make a big time difference for your football team. And that's something that you look at going forward if they do end up moving on from Kevin Stefanski, and you could sell that to a coach. You could say, hey, look at the draft that we just had. Now we have more draft capital to go get more talent for this team. And I think they're heading in the right direction here. This to me is not just your regular 2-win football team. I think that there's some actual momentum here. I think that when you look at the quarterback, Shedeur Sanders looks like he's showing some promise. When you look at the pieces that they have on this team, when you look at Judkins and Harold Fanning and Jerry Jeudy, maybe they add another receiver. I just think that this team is heading in the right direction. They're going to have really premium draft capital in this upcoming draft. And I think that they have a really good opportunity to capitalize on a window where you have a 5th round pick rookie who's going to be on a 5th round pick wage scale to really stack this roster and put together a team that could compete in the AFC. Can they do it? I'm not 100% sure. But what I'm saying is they're making strides and going in the right direction as an organization when it comes to the personnel side of things. So that's just what I think of the Cleveland Browns. I think even though they lost this game to the Tennessee Titans, if Shedeur Sanders is a franchise quarterback, this team is absolutely heading in the right direction. And I just want to say this because I have been critical of Shedeur Sanders. I have no problem. If he plays well and he proves me wrong, I have no problem sitting here and telling you guys he proved me wrong. You want to know why I have no problem? Because I have no personal feelings towards any of these players. None of these players affect my life on a daily basis. None of these players have done anything wrong to me. So why do I have any type of vitriol towards any of these players? I don't. But when I see certain things from what I saw with Shedeur Sanders, I'm going to criticize him for it. But when I'm starting to see him turn the corner and go in the right direction, I'm going to give him credit for it. It's called being fair. Right? Don't we want people to be fair? I'm trying to be fair here. And as a matter of fact, I think that my take has more credibility knowing that I was critical of Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that takes any credibility away from me at all. As a matter of fact, I think that people who are, pro Shedeur Sanders can say, look at what this guy said about him before and look at what he's saying about him now. He did not change his tone in a bad way. He changed his tone because Shedeur Sanders changed who he was. He wasn't always what we see right now. He's heading in the right direction as both a guy that you could build around as a quarterback and just as a player on the football field. So he deserves credit for that. And I'm going to give him credit for that. Why? Because it's fair.